I was going to begin by talking to you about the momentous steps we in ASEAN are about to embark upon. But the events of recent days and weeks have cast a shadow over us all. 170 dead after the attacks in Paris and Beirut. 224 lives taken in a bombing of Russian passenger jet over the Sinai Desert. Just this week, an innocent Malaysian beheaded in the southern Philippines. And yesterday, the tragic hostage incident in Bamako, Mali. There cannot be a person in this hall who has not been shocked and shaken by the sickening disregard for human life and the devastation visited on families and communities. Our countries are in mourning. We all share in this grief. The perpetrators of these cowardly and barbaric acts do not represent any race, religion, or creed, nor should we allow them to claim to do so. They are terrorists and should be confronted as such with the full force of the law. Malaysia stands ready to provide any help and support that we can. And be assured that we stand with you against this new evil that blasphemes against the name of Islam. We are ever vigilant against a threat that is very real in our region. Local militants and groups such as Abu Sayyaf have sworn allegiance to the so-called Islamic State. It was they who cruelly murdered our countryman, Bernard Then, on Tuesday. We must recognize that problems of extremism today require new solutions. Understandably, many will want to fight the so-called Islamic State out of the lands they have stolen from millions of Syrian and Iraqis. But a military solution alone will not be enough to defeat those who see peace and want to cause war. Those who see order and civilization and wish for nothing but mayhem and death. Who see prosperity and culture and burn to bring desolation and despair. It is the ideology propagated by these extremists that is the cause of this sadistic violence. And in this time of tragedy, we must not lose sight of the fact that the ideology itself must be exposed as the lie that it is and vanquished, for it is not Islamic, it cannot be. It states clearly in the Holy Quran that if anyone takes a life, and I quote, it shall be as if he had killed all mankind, end of quote. Suicide, under any circumstances, never mind suicide bombing that kills innocents, is likewise a terrible sin. In the Hadith, it is recorded that Prophet Muhammad said that God forbids paradise to anyone who takes their own life, let alone the lives of innocents. We should examine why anyone should be misguided enough to follow this perverted ideology. What is their motivation? But let us be clear. It is an utter travesty of a religion of peace, justice, and moderation. More than ever, it is that last concept, moderation, that we are in dire need of around the world. Moderation, or wasatiyah, is at the heart of Islam It is a Quranic injunction that no Muslim can disobey. But moderation does not belong only to us. It has been the locomotive of the non-violent approach to solving conflict throughout history. This is how Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King won the hearts and minds of their enemies and resolved the conflicts and injustices that they each were fighting against. They won. They won by transforming their foes into friends. It can take a heroic effort. When Jesus or Nabi Isa, as Muslims call one of our greatest prophets, said, and I quote, "Blessed are the peacemakers," end I quote. He was praising those who took on the hardest of labors. There is nothing easy or wimpish about moderation. It is a concept that is deeply embedded in the ASEAN way, and one which is close to our hearts here in Malaysia, where our unique mixture of faiths and ethnicities could have divided us, but instead diversity has strengthened us. The thoughts and prayers of us all, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, and people of other faiths, are with the peoples of Russia, France, Lebanon, Mali, as they are with the families of the victims of the last month bombing in Ankara, Turkey, and with the peoples of Syria and Iraq, whose suffering has endured for so long. We pray, and we pray that a more moderate and peaceful world will one day consign such outrageous and murderous ideologies to the past. Let us begin. Let us begin that work today. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all here in Kuala Lumpur at a historic moment for our 10-nation association. For tomorrow, we will formally declare the establishment of the ASEAN community on 31st December 2015, marking the culmination of our decades-long effort to integrate, to cohere, and to forge ahead as a family together. It is a day that we have all been waiting for. It is a day that we in ASEAN can be proud of. We have maintained the high ambitions we set for ourselves in the three community blueprints: economic, political, security, and social cultural. Our growth has been nothing but impressive, and ASEAN is increasingly seen not only as an integral to the global economic and security architecture, but also a region of tremendous opportunity. As the CEO of a major international banking group put it earlier this year, and I quote, "There's a giant in Asia shifting the tectonic plates of manufacturing, trade, services, and the global economy. ASEAN is the next horizon." End of quote. But ladies and gentlemen, allow me to suggest that you close your eyes for a moment. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that we're living in this region today without ASEAN. What would it be? Would we be living in a region as peaceful as it is today? No way. Would we be enjoying the same standard of living? No way. Would our combined GDP have grown to $2.6 trillion last year, a near 80% increase in 7 years? No way. Will we have the same levels of connectivity? No way. Will we be talked about as the most dynamic and promising region on earth? No way. Clearly, the answer is no. We would not be what we are today without ASEAN. ASEAN more than served its purpose. ASEAN has been a great success. With over 240 million Muslims, 140 million Buddhists, 130 million Christians, and millions of Hindus, Sikhs, Confucians, Taoists, and others, as well as numerous different ethnicities, Southeast Asia was once referred to as the Balkans of the Orient. We were, wrote one scholar, and I quote, a cultural and political fault zone, end of quote. Given this diversity, he continued, wars of separation should emerge as a natural consequence. And half a century ago, we were indeed a group of developing nations in a region riven by conflict and instability. That could have continued. Look around the world, and you will find plenty of countries that greeted the dawn of independence gladly, but only to taste the bitter ashes of disappointment when they found themselves decades on, mired in poverty and neglect and swept up in wars brought on by ego-driven leaders, which had nothing to do with the national interest. Or we could, in Southeast Asia, have emulated those developed nations whose taste for competition has often extended into a form of economic warfare, elevating the principle of survival of the fittest into a savage battle for wealth and primacy, believing that for one to win, another must fail. Instead, we did something remarkable. We chose another way. In 1967, our forefathers formed a new association that has grown to our 10 nations today. And we have advanced and risen together, the ASEAN. We have stressed community and consensus building over the excesses of individualism and the seeking of selfish objectives. Non-violence over confrontation, moderation over extremism, showing respect, not just to our friends, but also to our foes. For we know there is no virtue in humiliation. Peace-seeking, peace-building, instead of fanning the flames of conflict and war. We are a highly diverse collection of faith and ethnicity. We've had to work together and overcome our differences. But in transcending them, we have a unique example of how 10 different nations can form a shared vision of how we are many, but we are one as ASEAN. And I believe that the reason we have been able to do that is not just due to the necessary political will. It is because the values that I've just mentioned, the values that are deeply rooted in the emotions and cultures of our people. More than treaties and summits, they are what bind ASEAN together, and they are the foundation for our confidence in the path that we are forging together. Ladies and gentlemen, I have talked about the ASEAN way and of the ideals and values our peoples share. But we should also admit that we have a challenge, making everyone across our nations, from the ordinary fisherman, the farmer, to the foreign exchange dealer in a shiny new tower, feel in their hearts that they are not just part of ASEAN, but they are ASEAN. And that is not easy. How do we make ASEAN something that touches the everyday lives of our people? How do we make our citizens feel directly, personally, that the possibilities of the community we will establish tomorrow are theirs and belong to them? Too often, I'm afraid, ASEAN can seem rather remote. That is why I'm glad that today we will honor 10 individuals and organizations for the community building efforts at the inaugural ASEAN People's Award. Similarly, I'm delighted that in conjunction with the 27th ASEAN Summit, Malaysia is hosting the One ASEAN Entrepreneurship Summit, a week-long assembly of 15,000 young entrepreneurs from all over ASEAN, some of whom are with us today in this hall. Earlier this year, Malaysia launched Go ASEAN TV, a new English language ASEAN-focused travel channel that will serve as a platform for ASEAN member countries to jointly promote tourism in ASEAN, both to the world and to each other. And just yesterday, we established the ASEAN Micro and SME Growth Accelerator Exchange for SME Finance. This is a practical, tangible example of ASEAN making a real difference to the hard-working companies that are the backbone of our economies. But we must do more. And now we are about to become a community. We owe it to our people to commit ourselves to specific deliverables and making good on our promises. It is imperative that we have solid progress to report on next time we meet in Vientiane. There are some low-hanging fruit we can focus on. For example, we should ensure that there are special lanes for ASEAN citizens at every international port, road, and airport. We should have banners celebrating ASEAN food in cafes, warungs, food courts, and supermarkets. We need to prioritize the launch of the ASEAN Business Travel Card. Ironically, we have the AirPac Business Travel Card, but we don't have the ASEAN Business Travel Card yet. And strengthen ASEAN internship program. We should promote more ASEAN festivals and cross-cultural ties, like Titian Budaya, and ensure that no student leaves school without having been taught about our history. We need that single market and production base we talk about. We need the free movement of goods, services, and skilled labor, capital investment, and at the moment, non-tariff barriers which affect daily life and employment across our nations are too extensive. We should act more as ASEAN within our region. We need to cooperate to find solutions to environmental problems such as the haze, natural disasters, including floods, earthquakes, and crises of migration. On that note, I'm delighted that later this morning, we will sign the ASEAN Convention against trafficking in persons, especially women and children. And we should act more as ASEAN internationally in a way that makes it plain, clear, that together we are far stronger than as individual nations, and that others around the world will recognize and will respect our rise and what we have achieved so far. That includes maintaining peace, security, and stability in the South China Sea. We stress the importance of resolving disputes through peaceful means in accordance with international law, including the United Nations Convention on the law of the sea. We call on all parties to exercise self-restraint and avoid actions that would complicate or escalate tension. That is the ASEAN way. But ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget the immense practical benefits our association has already brought us. For on the economic front, ASEAN has made a direct financial difference to hundreds of millions. The ASEAN Free Trade Area, or AFTA, has reduced tariffs to zero or near zero. This has reduced the prices of countless goods and means our citizens have more money to spend on their families. Without AFTA, our firms would find it harder to access each other's markets. Without ASEAN, unemployment would be higher. The overall rate among our 10 nations is a comparatively low 3.3%, which economists attribute not just to countries but to ASEAN attracting substantial flows of foreign direct investment. Without ASEAN, our citizens would not enjoy visa-free travel throughout 9 out of our 10 member states. Without ASEAN and the mutual recognition agreements we have put in place, our professionals would find it far harder to work in each other's countries. And with further liberalization and integration comes still greater prices. It is estimated that the measures we are implementing under the ASEAN Economic Community will raise overall GDP in ASEAN by 7% by 2025. That will be an enormous gain for our economies in the hundreds of billions. Ladies and gentlemen, at this summit, we will be also signing the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on ASEAN 2025, forging ahead together, which incorporates the ASEAN community vision. This is about how we build upon and deepen the integration process to realize the rules-based, people-oriented, people-centered ASEAN community in which we seek to narrow the development gap. It is an ambitious document, but ambition is part of our heritage. Our forefathers, they were ambitious when they signed the Bangkok Declaration that set up ASEAN. Our predecessors were ambitious when they expanded the association up to our present 10 nations. And it was ambitious to plan for ASEAN to become what we will establish tomorrow. That is a body with one vision, one identity, an association that will be reborn as one community, ready to take its place on the world stage as a new force in the Asia-Pacific and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia has been honored to chair ASEAN in this momentous year. And let me suggest that after tomorrow, we refer to ourselves as the ASEAN community, a proud new name to mark this significant evolution in our association. For this is ASEAN time. This is our time. ASEAN can and should play a major role in shaping this Asian century and work with our partners across the continents to shape a world of peace, prosperity, and openness. A world in which the carnage wrought by terrorists has been replaced by tolerance, moderation, and a true recognition of our common humanity. It is our historic duty to ensure that when the challenge arose, the people and the governments of Southeast Asia were equal to the task. On that note, it is my pleasure and honor to hereby declare the 27th ASEAN Summit open. Thank you.